I'm looking today at Mark's Gospel, and in Mark's Gospel, chapter 10 and verse 13, we read this. People were bringing little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it." And he took the children in his arms, put his hands on them, and blessed them. We're invited, we're asked to enter the kingdom of heaven like a little child. And what does that mean? It means that we've got to approach simply. We've got to come to God as a father and approach him with simplicity that a child has in just approaching without any fuss, approaching confidently, and being aware that we need to be able to trust him, not make things so much more complicated as we often do as adults when we get caught up in all sorts of conflicts in our heart and mind. Children sometimes take life a lot simpler than adults do, and we need to be aware of that when we come to God and trust him simply as our Father in heaven. And these children didn't have those social airs and graces. They didn't have those psychological barriers. Sometimes we have all sorts of barriers that we use to become an obstacle for us approaching God. And those different layers, those different facades, those different walls that we have put up, those things often stop us from reaching out to God with honesty, with integrity, with simplicity. I've been challenged recently by allowing my heart to be more open, understanding that there are layers maybe inside me where I'm not letting God get through, things which maybe are difficult to be honest about, perhaps areas which I haven't been honest with myself about, and maybe it's important also to be honest with others about them. And that simplicity, that openness, that vulnerability is important with God. And it's important sometimes also to have people around us who we can feel safe with, we can share honestly and openly with as well when we need to. And Jesus took those children in this little story in Mark. He took those children into his arms and he blessed them, and he placed his hands on them. They were able to come and be welcomed. They were able to be received by him. They were able to be enveloped in his loving arms and blessed. And nothing was going to hinder them. Nothing was going to stop them. Nothing was going to hold them back. And when parents wanted to bring these kids to Jesus, the disciples were creating barriers that were unnecessary. So often we also create barriers that are unnecessary for others at times to simply reach out to God, and maybe we are part of the problem as well. So my prayer today is that God would help us not to become an obstacle, a stumbling block. God would help us also in ourselves to allow those walls to come down, those barriers, those obstacles, those hindrances, the things that stop us reaching out to God, and sometimes also reaching out to others, and that we would come again as little children approaching our Father in heaven.